there too. And although I was there as a volunteer for the League of Women Voters, and I spent my time at the League of Women Voters booth, I was a rights student at the time. And I said, I know many, many people who attended the conference, and I believe that there would be some interest in not just a permanent commemoration of the event, but an opportunity to reconnect with many of the women who helped organize and participate in the event, and to reclaim some of that history. Because I would also point out that we have an amazing archive as part of the Houston Public Library system that covers many singular and significant events for the city of Houston. And this is one where we do have, as you can see, some amazing artifacts, but also the opportunity to gather and collect more. And it was an appropriate time to reach out, to bring together women and men, as I'm looking forward to introducing our next speaker, women and men who were a part of this event. As Ms. Steinem said, this was an important turning point in the women's movement, the largest gathering of women since the Women's Rights Convention in Seneca Falls in 1848. The federal government set aside money to hold the convention and to hold the gatherings in every state that sent delegates to this conference. They actually set aside $5 million. I think a current president would have a hard time setting aside that much money for an event devoted to women. The conference was held primarily in the Sam Houston Coliseum, and now the Hobby Center for the Performing Arts, with approximately 2,000 delegates and 15,000 to 20,000 observers. They gathered to create a national plan of action to improve the lives of women. Dignitaries included First Lady Rosalind Carter, former First Ladies Lady Bird Johnson and Betty Ford, Coretta Scott King, Barbara Jordan, activist Betty Friedan, Gloria Steinem, poet Maya Angelou, with her A More Perfect Union. 26 planks or topics addressed included arts and humanities, battered women, child abuse and child care, credit, disabled women, education, employment, older women, rape, reproductive freedom. Isn't it amazing that those issues are still resonating, and in fact we seem to be backsliding in some of them. And then of course the Equal Rights Amendment, which ultimately didn't pass in this country. A final report was presented to President Carter entitled The Spirit of Houston, the first National Women's Conference. And of course with a name like that, it indicates that there would be other national women's conferences, although they didn't happen. In putting this event together, and I truly leaned on Minette a great deal. I know she had fun contacting folks, and I hope you have the email from Mayor Whitmire that I don't know if it's not in my notes, but it is in my notes. Are you telling me I just didn't find it? Okay. We contacted Mayor Whitmire, and she said, well, you know, I was a big supporter of the conference, but Annisse, you may not remember, I didn't attend because I was in the middle of a runoff campaign. I had some other things to do. I want to acknowledge Councilmember Ellen Cohen joining me here this morning, State Senator Sylvia Garcia. There's some others who I'm not going to announce yet because they're going to be speaking, but ladies, thank you for being here, and I know that you have been a part of advancing the rights and opportunities for women here in this community. Thank you very much. Senator Garcia says she was a Texas delegate to the conference. Now, in order to host this event, it required that the mayor of Houston be supportive and welcoming and make the appropriate city facilities available. And certainly it's important to us that Mayor Fred Hoffines was interested in the role and rights of women. He was interested in hosting this event, and I'm very, very pleased that he's able to be with us here today. Mayor, it's a great job. It's a great job all the time. It's not always an easy job or a fun job. And I know that this conference puts you in a position of conflict with some of your friends and supporters, but it also puts you in a position to do the right thing at the right time, and we appreciate you for doing that. So please come forward.
Well, thank you. Here we are 38 years later. We're not looking younger, do we? Thank you, Mayor, Senator, Councilwoman, pardon me, and all other distinguished guests here. It is, I think, appropriate that we remember this conference. I think when they write the book of the history of the women's movement in the 20th century, this conference will be a major chapter. You didn't accomplish everything that you intended to accomplish, but you did set a platform, an agenda for what could be accomplished over the next 38 years. You haven't gotten there yet. I read in I think Huffington Post a couple of days ago that the President now says that women have reached only 77% of the male's salary for equivalent jobs. So there's a lot left to be done, not just on that issue, but many others. But I guess what I might contribute here this morning is to answer the question, why Houston? Think about it a second. It's a big country. This was a national movement. Houston's this little bitty place down here in South Texas. The epicenter of this movement was in New York and Washington, of course. So why Houston? I think the answer to that question, and there's a lesson here, is our reputation. In 1975, 76, 77, many of you remember, Houston was a city with a reputation for being open. We were welcoming people. We were adjusting our relationship with minorities of all kinds in Houston during that period of time. And we had a reputation for being a city that had an administration that was committed to women's rights. I had been elected in 1973 with the help of a lot of people in this room. A lot of constituent females supported my election in 1973. And I felt a real need and a responsibility to perform on that promise. So I think among the very first things that we did when we came into office was establish under the Civil Service Code with the City Council a position in the city government called Women's Advocate. That was going to be our new sheriff in town. And with the help of a lot of people again, set me out to find out that I set out to find the most perfect person to fill that job. I was lucky enough to find Nikki Van Huyten, who you'll find hear from here earlier in a few minutes. And then subsequently, of course, Bobby Northcott. Is that right? I forgot. I have forgotten. But anyway, what I do remember is that in the course of Nikki's administration of the woman's office, the City Council tried to fire her. They eliminated that civil service position. And I immediately took her out of civil service and put her in the mayor's office. It's not civil service, and the council can't touch that. And she continued to do her job, and she had been hired to do. And as a result of that, we got a lot of national publicity. It was known everywhere, including in that epicenter of New York, that Houston had an administration that was dedicated to women's rights. I know that because I had many friends in New York at the time. Some of whom were editors of Ms. Magazine. I met with Ms. Outfit several times during that period of time. And we were known by the leaders of the movement, by the leaders in town, of Ms. Magazine, etc., as a place that was acceptable to women's rights. So when they had to make a decision, they weren't going to have this in New York, they weren't going to have it on the East Coast, they had to have it somewhere in the middle of the country because it was a national event. Houston was a natural choice because of our reputation. Now, we might have done a little bit to that reputation 2 weeks ago, folks. And I can't leave this podium without saying I think it's a tremendous mistake for the city. We are an open city, we are a loving city, we are an acceptable city, and that does not demonstrate what we are, that vote. I would warn those who might have been fooled by the demagoguery of that opposition, that this city is always, we are essentially a city of minorities. And each minority protects the interest of the other minority. Think about that. Whenever we have a vote in Houston that has been important, and with regards to human rights over the years, except for that one, every minority has rushed to protect the other minority that was under attack. Well, that was the exception. And I think if some of those folks out there that are parts of a minority group that have been protected by the rest of us realize that it's important that we all stick together, that we can reverse that. And I'm convinced that Mayor Parker and subsequent mayors of Houston are going to do that. I think it's important. So, again, the history of the women's movement will be remembered for a long time, and the role of Houston will be important in that memory. And I'm very hopeful that we can continue to make Houston the kind of warm and open place that it has always been. I appreciate very much the honor you give me by bringing me to this event today. I appreciate the honor of being mayor at the time to bring this convention to Houston, this conference to Houston, and I thank all of you for sitting here today.